Good evening, everybody. We'll give a minute more for the participants to log in, and then we can start the event. Thanks for your patience. Good evening, Balaji. Can you hear us?
Hello. हेलो अच्छा ठीक है ज्वाइनिंग होगा
Hi, Amaya. Morning.
Oh, hi.
Good evening, Amitabh sir. Dinesh from Ernst & Young. See you.
Yeah, good evening. Dinesh, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. Hope you're doing good.
Good evening. I am RJ Wala from PGVC.
Good evening, sir. Thanks for joining. Amitabh sir, Amit Jain is also there. He has joined from Washington.
Okay.
Okay, I think we are set. We should get going. So once again, a very warm welcome. Good evening, good morning to the ladies and gentlemen and the speakers and the panelists who have taken your very precious time on a Tuesday evening to join us. It's wonderful to have you for this site event webinar, which is an online event which is happening on the sites of ADB's Asia Clean Energy Forum 2022. As you all know, ADB organizes this forum every year. And this is I think 12th or 13th edition, if I'm right, and they have been successfully conducting this online during the COVID and post-COVID. So this year they are working on innovative and integrated solutions for a low carbon and resilient future, and they had agreed to host our side event on the sides of their main event, which started today morning. I believe most of them have registered for the main event. I've seen the plenary sessions and other sessions. It's quite interesting. If not, please do register for the ADB Asia Clean Energy Forum, and you can have an excellent access to all the information and chats and newsletters and daily summary, etc. So I would urge you to please do watch these events, which are quite useful and enriching. I am Yuvraj Dinesh Babu. I am the Executive Director at Ernst & Young and also the team leader for the Suprabha Technical Assistance Program. This is a 5-year technical assistance program for rooftop solar in India. This program is launched under the guidance of MNRE, and it's being implemented by the World Bank and State Bank of India since August 2017. So I've been leading this program by working for 17 states and 32 schools. So the topic of today's evening, as you have seen, is new business model, SMEs and residential sector. We have moved a long way, as you all know, in terms of rooftop solar. We have discussed and regulatory as a barrier, discussed access to finance as a big issue, and consumer. So all these barriers have been quite well articulated in the market. A lot of solutions have been developed. But very recently, many Indian states and even inside India, in the US, Europe, or in even Southeast Asia, there are new business models that have helped basically to penetrate the implementation of solar in the country, and that's how World Bank and Ascendant have an event around this, because it's a topic of today, and everybody is interested to know how these new business models are technically feasible, whether it is financially viable, and whether it would really help accelerate the implementation of the rooftop solar. So we thought it's good and apt to have a side event and discuss with the experts in the financing field, and the research, and other related areas so that they can provide their experience, share their experience, provide inputs, and then we can take it forward as well. That's a background, so I don't want to steal much of the time. The kind of elite speakers who have lined up here. So agenda, as you would have seen, is for 90 minutes. Slightly, we can go beyond that schedule based on the availability of experts whom we invited. But first, we have the welcome remarks, followed by the presentation by World Bank, and then we have a keynote address, and then last will be the panel discussion and questions from the audience. That I'm extremely happy to invite Dr. Amit Jain, who's a senior energy specialist from the World Bank, to give his welcome remarks. Over to Amit.
Thank you, everybody, and good morning from DC and good evening to people who are based in India and Manila. I believe that's where most of the audience is coming from. So I am Amit Jain, Senior Energy Specialist with the World Bank, and we are working with State Bank of India on solar rooftop program. At the outset, first, very few things about where we are right now, the World Bank intervention in solar rooftop, our partnership with SBI, and the role this program plays in the net zero goal of Government of India. As we all know that several countries have now declared net zero goals and they are moving towards energy transition. And solar rooftop plays an integral role in this journey. I will request my colleague Abhinav to put on the slide while I'm giving the opening remarks. When Government of India launched the National Solar Mission and from 15 years back to declaring net zero goal by 2070, I think we have come a long way. 15 years back, we were talking about how solar is expensive, and now we are talking about green hydrogen. So a journey from solar to wind to storage to electric vehicles to green hydrogen is a journey in itself. And I think India is taking lead on moving towards the energy transition. One thing which India also has done is decoupled its economic growth. We are consistently growing at 6 to 8% if you ignore the pandemic times. And at the same time, the renewable energy installations has been almost now increasing more than the fossil fuels on the ground. So what I'm trying to say, India has moved with the decoupling of economic growth and energy transition. In this energy transition journey, solar rooftop is playing and will play a key role going forward. In the next slide, you will see, while India is known that we are a leader globally in renewables, but has been mostly because of large-scale solar parks. Till 2016, on the left-hand side in the graph, you will see only 500 megawatts were installed in solar rooftop. Now, Government of India has declared 40%, which is 40 gigawatt of 100 gigawatt should come from solar rooftop, and till now only 7 to 8 gigawatt has been there. In 2016, only 500 megawatts was there, and today we have almost about 30 to 40 gigawatts of grid-connected solar. So you can see the dichotomy and the difference between a large-scale solar versus the solar rooftop program. So it was way back in 2016, Government of India asked us to partner with State Bank of India, which is the largest commercial bank in India. And then we launched a $650 million loan on commercial and industrial sector with State Bank of India in 2016. In the last 5 years, with full credit to SBI and Sri Amitabh Sinha is online with his team, now the project has been extremely successful. I have to tell you that World Bank has disbursed almost 100% of its finances to State Bank of India, and almost 400 megawatts has been installed on the ground, and it has leveraged approximately $4 billion with the $650 million. That is because of the professional and the wide outreach SBI has on the ground, and with the policy and regulatory support provided by Government of India. In this background, we were just asked to move another project on residential sector, which is much more difficult than commercial and industrial sector. In 2022, which is right now, we are going to sign another program with State Bank of India on residential solar rooftop on $165 million. So you see a journey here also from CNI sector, which is much more bankable, to a smaller and a difficult sector, which is the residential sector. But we are not stopping here. This program again is with SBI. We are working and designing on a guarantee scheme for MSME, for medium, small, and enterprises, which is even much more difficult than the residential program. So this guarantee scheme, we are in discussion with CDT SME, which is a trust under the MSME ministries, to see how we can provide the guarantee framework to the banks who is giving loan to these MSME. So we are trying, the World Bank is trying to cover all the domains, all the sectors of rooftop sector to kickstart and try to achieve the 40 gigawatt goal going forward. Just last 1 or 2 minutes before I hand it over to Dinesh, the detailed presentation will be covered by my colleague Abhinav, who will discuss business models, the financing terms and conditions, and other details of the World Bank program, which we have with State Bank of India. But one last thing, that decentralization and renewable energy is key to energy transition. And unless and until we have a solar rooftop on every house in India, I think we have still a lot of work to do. And World Bank is committed with the partnership with State Bank of India to make the solar rooftop program a success. Thank you. Over to you, Dinesh.
Thank you so much, Amit. That's a great kind of setting the scene, I would say, as usual by you. It's wonderful to see how the transformation has taken place, and you have dissected so nicely how it has happened for the last 6 to 7 years, and the growth is phenomenal. Of course, we have challenges which we discussed even several years ago, but we have come a long way in terms of addressing them slowly but steadily, so that we have solutions in hand to and to implement it in a great fashion. So thanks once again, Amit, for setting the scene and welcoming the audience. Now, I would like to request Abhinav Goel, expert from the World Bank, to give his detailed presentation on new business models for rooftop solar penetration in SMEs and residential sector. Over to Abhinav. Abhinav, please.
Okay. Thanks, Dinesh, and thanks, Amit, for setting the context. So, am I audible and is my screen visible?
Yeah, perfect. Good to
go. Okay, great. Thanks. So before I get into further details, I would just build upon what Amit mentioned. So which is around, like as you see on this slide, S curve. So basically, through my presentation, I'm trying to present a case study of rooftop solar program of World Bank, and how like this serves as one of a reference model to finance or to kind of serve the financing need of the broader energy transition of the energy sector in India. So basically, as we all know, there are several studies, including IEA and others, which talk about a couple of trillions of dollar which would be required for energy transition. So the question at hand is to like find an answer to this critical question in terms of how this financing needs would be met. And what I'm going to present is just a glimpse of what like the role a multilateral development bank like World Bank could play in terms of supporting country in meeting its financing requirement. So that's one part of the presentation, and this is something which I'm going to present through the rooftop solar case study with State Bank of India. And second, I also want to touch upon the importance of DRE, or in this case, distributed renewable energy or rooftop solar. So while India has ambitious target, like it is 175 gigawatt, we all know about 40 gigawatt of rooftop solar target, but in general, the potential is much larger. So what we see here is, like phenomenal growth in the last 4 to 5 years. The rooftop solar sector has grown at around 50% CAGR. We also see that there are certain consumer segments which have shown quite good performance, while there have been other in the initial curve, what Amit discussed about residential and MSME as harder to develop sectors. And also we see that capex and optex have been the predominant model with large share in capex installation. But the point is, it's not just limited to 40 gigawatt. The overall, as I mentioned, the idea is to have rooftop solar on every roof, and that's where the uh, the DRE or rooftop solar links with the broader energy transition goal or vision of India, that given the limitation of land, for instance, for large. So while like there would be scope for all renewable energy technologies, but this is clearly a low-hanging fruit and one of the most efficient ones to be promoted, where solar rooftop provides a lot of system benefits, and also doesn't come with the challenges around acquisition of land and others. So for instance, in India, there is close to 20 percentage of T&D losses at a national level, and that is one area where rooftop solar plays a critical role. So I don't want to get into the technical aspects, but just trying to lay the foundation in terms of why rooftop solar is important in the energy transition story of the country, and how what kind of business models or approaches are there to kind of meet the financing need of this sector, but also broadly the other renewable energy technologies.
Of course.
So I'm starting with this slide in terms of environment which exists, because in 2016, when we started with the State Bank of India program, there were several challenges related to policy and regulatory, DISCOM willingness, awareness of end users. So while we have made progress on certain aspects, particularly on having a more if not completely uniform, but the indication is towards that, wherein we have the right of consumer rules, which talk about 500 kilowatt system allowed under net metering, and also introduction of other innovative mechanisms like net feed-in. So that's one of the key drivers as we see. Again, the ministry's outlook towards making distribution companies as the nodal agencies is one of the key drivers for the segment, particularly in the residential sector. And we have Mr. Wala, who would talk about it. He is one of the like representing GUVNL and the kind of work which they have done, so he can discuss more about it later on. Then when it comes to challenges, so as I had shown previously, so CNI sector has seen a decent growth. However, within the CNI, the MSMEs and the residential sector are still there are still challenges. While there are a few success stories, but broadly speaking, there still remains challenges around payment security issues, challenges around the high cost of capital, lack of awareness, and so on. And I will in the subsequent slides I will showcase how we have made an attempt to at least address some of these challenges through our intervention. So as Amit mentioned earlier about the rooftop solar program with SBI, I just wanted to focus on the leveraging effect, connecting back to the discussion around how to finance the needs of energy transition in the country. So like in this case, this is an ongoing program with State Bank of India, where it was launched in 2016. The typical challenges was around high cost of capital, and then World Bank with State Bank of India was the first risk taker. And the last 5 years, five and a half years, we have seen the market has grown to like from 500 megawatt to now 9 gigawatt. in a way mobilizing around $3.5 billion, like the entire market. And as Amit mentioned, so we have disbursed 100% of the facility until now. But the idea is that how did we do that? So in that case, so there are two aspects to it. One, when in 2016 there was a dearth of capital and also the affordability of it. Through the World Bank program, the cost of capital was brought down to typical single digit. It was benchmarked to MCLR, so it was around 8.5 to 9%. In addition to that, there was a technical assistance program to kind of create that enabling environment where I mentioned about some of the policy, consumer awareness, and some of the other challenges related to the capacity of the stakeholders. So through a combination of concessional lending and the technical assistance, we kind of kick-started this market, which has now, like grown to this size. And then, as Amit mentioned, so we are now, like in the S curve, we are now we have now partnered again with State Bank of India for the residential loan, and then also with Ministry of MSME and CGTMSE for a credit guarantee instrument for MSMEs, which are the tougher sectors. So in terms of the technical assistance program, we have these 5 to 6 pillars, which again links back to the previous slide on challenges where MNRE led or basically spearheaded the technical assistance program, because there were similar programs from other multilateral and bilateral entities. So World Bank has been allocated 17 states, and for the last 5.5 years, we have been engaging with these states, handholding them, and on the following interventions, which are around policy, regulatory. We have helped build capacity of the distribution company officials, of the bankers who are doing these evaluation. We did a lot of awareness raising exercises, developed collaterals, which could then be utilized by the state implementing agency to raise awareness about the rooftop solar benefits and how they could avail rooftop solar systems. Then helping the state entities to build the unified web portal. These are online tools where the entire process is mapped end to end to facilitate and fasten the process of application, and then innovating around the demand aggregation, particularly in the public sector buildings, where we introduce the concept of data rooms to kind of bring down the transaction cost and helping out in the entire bid process management. So the point is that through the combination of technical assistance and the lending program, we were able to kind of support the rooftop solar sector, particularly in the commercial and industrial space. Now we are, I would spend a few more minutes on the two additional programs. One is on the credit guarantee mechanism, particularly for rooftop solar systems that would be installed in MSMEs. So as you could see on this screen, so we have CGTMSE, which acts as the facility manager. And then the whole idea is to take away the perceived credit risks which are felt by PFIs, the lenders, the commercial lenders who are slightly apprehensive of lending to MSMEs, particularly for rooftop solar, because of their perceived credit risks. And this program, by we are kind of providing a partial risk guarantee, which means that in case of a default, a portion of the outstanding debt obligation would be covered by the facility, which is backstopped by IBRD guarantee. So essentially, the PFIs, because of this guarantee, they would get this comfort of lending or providing debt to the rooftop solar projects, both to RESCO developers and directly to MSMEs, and which will then drive the sector. So in general, what we see currently of the 9 gigawatt, roughly, like a very small portion of it is installed in MSME, while the potential is huge. So there are studies in the public domain which talk about anywhere between 16 to 18 gigawatt of economic potential of rooftop solar in MSMEs, which largely has remained untapped. And we believe by introducing this CGM mechanism, we would be able to address one of the main challenges around financing these systems. Last, on the residential program, so we have this additional financing with State Bank of India. It is the concessional financing, because that's what we have heard since the launch of the MNRE program, the phase 2 program. So the cost of lending to residential consumers has been high, and while their expectation is to have the loan, like priced around the home loan. So there was a clear need of bringing in this concessional lending. However, there is a lot of innovation which is happening both by the distribution companies and the private sector developers. I won't go into details, but of these business models, because I wanted to focus more on the role of like mobilizing how the programs of the World Bank has helped or will help kind of unlock private capital to finance the sector. But just to mention briefly about the innovation from the private sector, what we are seeing is that there are buyback schemes being talked about or being designed by some of the leading players, essentially to address the apprehension that in case of a default, what happens to the asset. So like this has been a long debate in the sector in terms of the secondary value of the solar assets. Similarly, there is this idea about the EMI model where some of the players are kind of implementing this model to match the consumer durable market, where anyone can like buy consumer durable even close to 1-2 lakh rupees and have EMIs on their credit cards. And then after certain periods, say 3 or 4 years, based on the EMIs and the cost of the system, the asset is transferred to the consumer. So this is again a very interesting model which is being tried and implemented. Second, in terms of the distribution companies, there are several. I didn't mention Gujarat here because Mr. Wala is here, but we have seen in case of Chandigarh, like through our technical assistance program itself, we are working with CREST, the nodal agency, and the electricity department, and the regulator to kind of take away or address the main risks around RESCOs, because the market is very fragmented. So basically, through this innovation in the business model, I don't want to discuss the slide and confuse. So therefore, I'm just discussing it. But broadly, on the left-hand side, this Chandigarh model is represented, where the RESCOs would only basically the power transaction and the contract would be signed with the distribution company. So it's like all the consumer roof would be utilized for installing rooftop solar, and that would be under net metering system. However, the cost to the RESCO is fixed at the average power purchase cost, and therefore by this the RESCOs would be happy because they don't have to deal with individual consumers. The consumers would be happy because they don't have to kind of look out for several developers and do their exercise of like whether it is making financial case or not, because it's being installed in net metering. And also for the distribution company, it has several benefits with regards to buying power at their distribution network at APPC, and also meeting their RPO and other benefits. So this is an interesting model. This is yet, like, we are almost in the final stages of getting this to the operational stage, and the idea is that maybe this model, once implemented in Chandigarh, can also be then taken to other states. Last part on the utility-led model, where Kerala has tried to address the challenge of the residential consumers' inability to kind of invest upfront. So anywhere between 35 to 50% of the capital cost is being taken care by the distribution company there. And again, with the benefit, because Kerala has limited land space, so they are really looking forward to kind of optimize their roofs for meeting their RPOs. So these are some of the models from the distribution companies, and the idea is to kind of just underscore the need of both private sector and distribution companies to kind of come forward and lead the residential rooftop solar segment through innovative business models. So I will stop here. Sorry, I have exceeded the time limit. Back to you, Dinesh.
No problem, Abhinav. Thank you so much for providing that, because it's very important to share those the details in terms of what is happening in terms of those new and key business models, not just because in theory, but also what is happening on ground. So it was equally important the way you explained, and it also sets the scene in terms of how SBI made this happen. So that's why your presentation, even if it takes time, is worthwhile to listen, largely because of the direct relevance between talking theories and then walking the talk. So from that angle, thank you so much, Abhinav, for delivering that presentation. Now we have the keynote address, which is being delivered by Mr. Amitabh Sinha. He is working as the Deputy General Manager in Credit Policy and Procedures Department at SBI. He leads the green initiatives with respect to policy requirement for SBI, and is also leading the prestigious initiative of $625 million World Bank SBI line of credit for propagation of rooftop solar. So now let me invite Mr. Amitabh Sinha to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Dinesh. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yes, good evening, today. I am happy to announce that our joint efforts with the World Bank have helped the country to achieve the new heights in rooftop solar segment. I am also happy to see our leading experts who have joined for the panel discussion as well. The Indian power sector has witnessed significant growth in the last decade. India's renewable energy deployment has grown significantly in the past decade, largely due to the government's proactive policy and regulatory measures for harnessing resources. Currently, renewable contribute to over 157 gigawatt in the country's total installed power capacity of 399, which is almost 39% of the country power generation capacity. And the country is well poised to achieve the targeted renewable capacity addition of 500 gigawatt by 2030. The State Bank is supporting the government program to generate electricity from widespread installation of grid-connected rooftop PV by partnering with the World Bank for a USD of 625 million facility. Through this loan facility, we have helped building rooftop solar ecosystem across the country and sanctioned loans aggregating more than rupees 2,500 crores. For individual projects, some key features of the SBI's concessional loans for rooftop solar is as follows. Loan up to 70% of the project cost we are financing, and the interest rate is between 8.15% and to 8.45 based on the credit rating. The key highlights from the success of the program so far, as at the end of March 2022, total loan sanctioned stands at USD 378 million, and total accounts across the country stand at 480. Close to 80% of the accounts are for capex projects by individual customers, and balance accounts are for RESCO. The CapEx mode projects account for close to 30% of the total loan sanction. If you look at the ticket sizes, 243 of the 480 accounts are of less than 1 crore loan size. Hence, more than half of the processed loan fall under the small ticket size category. For the success of this program, we have been continuously training our officers. Till date, we have trained 465 officers across the country. In addition to lending, SBI Technical Assistance Program has been assisting Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and the World Bank since August 2017 in 17 Indian states to address the barrier and create an enabling environment for an accelerated GRPV installation. Today's workshop is an important topic related to business model for SMEs and residential sector. Despite Government of India's strong policy support, the sector has witnessed a modest uptake of 9 gigawatt of rooftop solar. Due to lack of consumer awareness, higher upfront investments, and other operational challenges like net and gross metering. For residential consumer also, our bank is already extending loan up to extending loan as a top-up loan for home loan customers. We are also considering financing to residential consumers under the current grid-connected rooftop solar program with World Bank. For a further boost to this sector, RESCO can aggregate residential rooftop solar demand through residential welfare associations, group housing societies, and large capacities could be implemented with the help of loan from banks. Today's webinar has been designed to discuss about the new business models, mitigating solutions to develop financing solutions for large-scale rooftop solar projects implementation in residential sector and MSMEs. I am confident that today's deliberations will further intensify a positive dialogue among financing institutions, developers, and consumers towards resolving key challenges for rooftop projects. I'm pleased to see an elite panel designs and successful business model. I hope this workshop will serve to foster growth among various stakeholders. I request all of you to use today's session to have active discussions with your peers and come with innovative solutions that could be implemented for a sustainable tomorrow. I wish you good luck in your deliberations and thank you for being with us here today. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for giving the entire journey of how SBA started towards financing this rooftop solar, and definitely it's etched in the history in terms of how you and World Bank collaborated to make this happen. And it has been a wonderful experience working with you and your team for the last 5 years. And then I believe that there are many beneficiaries even in this call to share their experience in terms of how they got access to finance using SBI, and many other banks and FIs have come to India as well as within India. There has been a lot of motivation by what SBI has done. And the way you have a reach out, I believe, and I'm very confident that the SBI residential lending also is going to catch up very nice across the country. And then there'll be an excellent uptake for the residential sector as well. So thank you once again, sir, for sharing your valuable inputs as a keynote, and then setting again the tone for this entire side event. Now I think we'll go to the very important session as well, another important session of today, which is basically the panel discussion. I have an excellent list of panelists. I would like to upfront thank each one of them for having agreed to participate in this panel. And this panel is going to discuss all those issues that you heard in the presentation by Abhinav in terms of the challenges and how it was overcome, and how successfully each and every expert in this panel would like to share their kind of what has happened really on ground, and what are the challenges they faced, and how it has been converted into an opportunity by devising very good solutions on ground. So as you could see from the agenda, we have speakers from the financial sector, from the DISCOM, as well as from the consulting and research. So there is a good combination of expertise available to share with you in terms of how the experience in their respective space, whether it is US or India, how it has really translated into transformation for accelerated deployment of rooftop solar. The housekeeping is that I would request the participants to post their questions on the chat box. My team would be collating it in a document and then sharing it with me. I will pick few questions if we have time. I think I will definitely try to at least pick 2 or 3 questions at the end of the panel discussion. For the panelists, I would request you to take 5 to 7 minutes as agreed before, and you may hear a small kind of a very pleasant noise at the end of 7 minutes, if you don't mind, so that you can wrap it up. And I will be posing questions to you so that you can definitely start introducing about what you're doing, and then of course try to cover the kind of queries that I'm trying to raise it to you. So that'll be really great. I hope for a very interactive discussion. If the first round we have finishing it early and then we have some time, I would definitely come back to some of you panelists to give additional comments and thoughts. But of course, we can use that time for the question answers as well. So if that is an S, let's move forward. And this discussion is basically, as I mentioned to you, is to get the tips from you on the on-hands experience you have on ground, and then you have heard or been involved directly in terms of bringing the best and the right and the relevant solution on ground for promoting the residential and the SME sector. So with that objective, we can jump into the discussion, I believe. So I would first invite Abhishek Gupta, who is the General Manager from EESL India. And it's a very special to mention about the efforts from EESL India in terms of their mammoth kind of the LAMP program across the country. But it's not only that they have moved forward with many other products across the country, and they have also entered into rooftop solar as well. So Abhishek has a lot of experience in terms of structuring these projects, and especially we both have been trying to work out the structure for states in India for implementing rooftop solar. And the very recent kind of intervention in the MSME was also kind of very interesting to see how they are going to unfold that initiative as well. Sorry, Abhishek, I stole your thunder, but I would request you to kind of share your experience in terms of how you basically trying to work in the rooftop solar project. What are your initiatives, including the annuity business model and also supporting MSMEs? And of course, the challenges that you're facing now, and how is the AESL's thought process in overcoming it? Over to you, Abhishek.
Thanks, Dinesh, for lovely introduction. Hope I'm audible.
You are audible.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, very big thank you, Dinesh and team, for giving us an opportunity to tell the world what ESL is doing and how ESL is trying to again make a breakthrough penetration in terms of solar implementation at MSME rooftops. Basically, as you know, ESL has got two basic things which are unique. And the first one becomes the demand aggregation model, wherein we have tasted the success by collating the demand at large scale and ultimately implementing it at the last mile. We have done at least two programs which are perhaps the largest in the world, if not the largest amongst the largest. One being the Ujala and the other one being the street light program. So that we'll be using that capability of ours for rooftop solar as well. And the second complementary skill what we have is about reaching to MSME sector. As you know that we have been doing multiple projects with MSMEs across India by intervention of multiple technologies in especially energy efficiency. And good part is that it is not limiting to a specific sector. It is going to cater to most of the areas which are there in manufacturing or for that matter services as well. So these two complementary skills we'll be using, and we have been given the mandate by Ministry of Power to come up with a program which is innovative and which is going to actually help implementation on ground. So Dinesh has been kind enough to help us in devising those apart from other players. Uh, and in fact, in the recent review by Ministry of Power itself, this program has again been seen as a program where ESL and Bureau of Energy Efficiency together can make big difference in terms of implementation on the ground. So why ESL? Just because of these two factors, and in terms of our good connects with the Ministry of MSME, wherein they have been helping us coming up with new programs. So they have specifically asked us to do that. And important aspect in this is that Ministry of MSME is also helping us in including this solar program in their specific scheme, wherein they provide 15% capital subsidy, that is called CLSS. So Minister of Power is going to write a letter to Minister of MSME for including solar under CLSS scheme. So that will additionally help us to reduce the upfront cost for implementation on the ground. As far as getting the finances, yes, we have been in touch with SBI. There has been some positive discussion, and we are expecting that, yes, we'll be able to have an MOU signed, wherein for both kind of interventions, be it CAPEX or be it OPEX model, apart from annuity model, SBI would be keen to give us some credit line which is available to them through World Bank and help us actually implement it on ground. What we have seen that existing scheme of World Bank is currently not having 3 states, which are UP, Punjab, and Gujarat. So we are thinking that we'll be starting our program from these 3 states, and especially the clusters which are capital or you can say energy intensive, so that we are able to get the right kind of capacities which can be implemented there. We are talking to DISCOMs as well of the respective states. We are thinking of coming up with a solution which helps ultimately the EPC player or RESCO player to implement the solution on ground as well as get the net metering done on priority. So these are the ways and means which we are using actually to implement the things on ground at much faster pace, because in fact, we have been asked to do it within this financial year itself, at least 6 clusters to be covered by ESL in this first phase. And then we'd be increasing it to more other sectors wherein such demand aggregation related capability would be utilized, and the ultimate cost of putting the things on ground as well as doing the technology based survey activity to actually extract the maximum potential available on the rooftops can be done. So these are the ways and means which we are actually using. As far as challenges is concerned, yes, as we know that rooftop is not that easy to implement on ground because of so many challenges which are there. The very first is the good assessment of the potential itself. So we are using some technology based solutions where in fact we'll be doing the survey through drones and all, and there are some agencies which are helping us in getting the actual potential assessment done. That will help us in the very first go to get the right kind of capacities which can be available or which can be utilized or posted on the rooftop itself. The second aspect is about mapping the customers. So wherein we are taking the help of DISCOMs and they are helping us to get the rooftops synchronized, or you can say mapped with the customer details, so that we can understand what is the kind of potential which can actually be put up on the rooftop. Third, with SBI, yes, there are a lot of customers. In fact, SBI being the largest banker and being very proactive in the domain of rooftop solutions, uh, what we would be in fact thinking, what we'll be doing with SBI is uh, understand the debt portfolio of those respective clients, so that such potentials or such potential customers can be approached directly in the very first phase, so that because they would be for us the low hanging fruits in terms of implementing on the ground. So we'll be using or we'll be talking to those players in the first go to implement and showcase that yes, certain positive things can come up with those 15% capital subsidy by MSME will actually help us to fasten this kind of pace which we are thinking of. Apart from that, if you see the challenges related to awareness at the ground, so that is another area where we are working. But as we have very good connect with MSMEs because of the fact that we have been doing a lot of implementation activity for energy efficiency with them, so it would be natural for us to enhance or connect with them and help us, and that will surely help us to actually fasten the overall growth of the implementation at the ground. That's all I had. Any other question, Mr. Dinesh, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. I was about to give you the small bell reminder, but you have completed on time. Thank you so much. And as I mentioned to you, your initiatives are really going to transform the kind of scaling. And I'm very sure that the partnerships with the financing community is further going to interest. I'm very sure Amaya is taking the notes very, very fast. He's also very much interested to learn what you're doing. Because of his interest as well in the subject and his involvement. So a lot of new things that you have mentioned, Abhishek, we are very keen to kind of know more, and then we will definitely interact with you. And you need not thank us. We should thank you for sharing all your important points today, and we will definitely have a good follow-up. Thank you so much, Abhishek. Now we move on to Mr. Samit Mitra. He's the Director, Project Implementation at Smart Power India. So he has great experience as a business development leader for over 27 years, and he has established a high-performance team in the consumer packaged goods and the social impact organization. And definitely, he's been a great strength to where he is working in terms of expanding business and field operations by establishing the collaborative cross-functional relations. Mr. Samit, welcome to the panel. Thanks once again for joining. From Smart Power India, Rockefeller, you have been really a motivation to a lot of projects and communities which has been implemented across the country. And therefore, I thought I'll start from that in terms of your kind of thought process and your kind of inputs on the rural rooftop solar for MSMEs, where the market opportunity lies, what are the barriers, and how Smart Power India is kind of doing a lot of work in this space. And of course, do you see a role of private play in this space? And along the side, you can, of course, explain other initiatives which are relevant and the business models for implementing rooftop solar. So over to you, Samit.
Right. Thanks, Dinesh, for having me here. I will, start with a few figures which, Amit and Avinav shared. So the government of India has a target of 40 gigawatt to be achieved by end of this year, 2022. Now, if you break up, segment wise, out of this 40, 17 gigawatt is supposed to come from rural SMEs or MSMEs. And out of that 17, and we heard that 9 gigawatt has been installed. Out of that 9, only 0.5 gigawatt has been, installed in a rural setup. So against the overall target of 17, only 0.5. So whatever we do in achieving the balance 23, if this 17 is not taken care of, still we will be short of the overall government's target. So that's where Smart Power India comes into the play. Our focus has been for the last 7-8 years into the rural space of India, and we work very closely with the communities out there to see how economic development can be done. So when we saw these figures, and we had done a study along with John Hopkins on behalf of Niti Aayog, and we were really surprised to see close to 40% of rural SMEs or MSMEs are still dependent on diesel as their primary source. That's like 1 billion liters of diesel being burned every year. It's a huge quantity, and they're not connected to the grid. They're completely dependent on diesel. So it was the market is 17 gigawatt, which translates into almost 11 to $12 billion market. So much of diesel is being burned. So we were a bit surprised that why private players, developers, they are not targeting this market. Right. And when we did an in-depth study, there are three things. Avinav also shared, which came up as the main barrier. So one was the consumer awareness. I mean, consumer awareness, like one, most of these rural MSMEs were not aware that there is an option of solar. And second, whoever, I mean, if they were aware, the issue was that they didn't know that, how to go about it. I mean, whom to approach, I mean, how the designing will be done. So, there was a huge gap on that space. Second, from the developers or the private players side, in a rural setup, your demand is very, very fragmented. It's spread across, huge number of villages and districts. And for a private player, it's, a big challenge to kind of aggregate this demand and work on that. Also, they were not very sure that, who is going to fund them, fund this, MSMEs. The third, roadblock, which is again linked to that funding, is the financial linkage. We are actually here. I'm talking of MSMEs who are 10 kilowatt, 15 kilowatt, 20 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt. I'm not talking of 500 kilowatt. So they don't have a credit history. They don't have a civil score. Their civil score will be -1. I mean, they have never taken a loan in their life, right? I mean, who is going to fund them? Right. So we identifies these, areas, and being a, foundation, we felt that, our catalytic fund and our approach, will be fruitful if we can target this area. So we started, working with developers, with financiers, and, it was very heartening that, national developers like Adani and Havels and Servotech, they joined the program. And at the same time, NBFCs and financial institutes like, Annapurna, EFL, and then Fusion, I mean, they also joined this program. So it was, in a very short time, we were able to crowd this space with the right players. And in the last, so this program was launched beginning of this year. And in the last 4.5 months, 5 months, we have been able to convert close to 250, I mean, more than actually 250 such small MSMEs, and almost 5 megawatts, so an average 20 kilowatt kind of installation. So yeah, so the thing is, our objective is, we are not going to, address all 17 gigawatt, obviously, right? Our objective is how do we catalyze this market, catalyze this segment, so that then, this segment can take off on its own. There is no doubt that this has commercial legs of its own. I mean, it's a no-brainer. For a MSME, I mean, we usually are working on an asset financing kind of a model. In 2.5 to 3 years, all his loans are paid off, right? We even, kind of worked out in our business model that the cost of capital is important, but not that important. Because as long as the EMI of these guys are lower than what their current expense on energy is, they are fine, right? The third thing is that, as I said, that there is a high risk perception about these, customers. So we are working with, Ameya is here. So with Encourage Capital, we are working to see how we can, establish a, $100 million, credit mechanism. So we are in talk with a few players, and once that is in place, once the NBFCs are in place, so at least on the financial transactional part, it's taken care of. Yeah, so that's what we are up to. Thank you.
Samit, bang on, Samit. As you are known for, to the point, and you have given excellent kind of dissection, I would say, in terms of what the market is right now and where it should go. And your plans for tying up with the credit assistance with the help of AME and others. I wish you all the very best. But the kind of pointers which you gave, I think they are very relevant. And you and me know that we will continue to discuss this for the next decade as well. But you would see a lot of progress in terms of how the local solutions have been structured so that it could be replicated at a faster scale in other rural areas. Also, what we need is the confidence. I think that is what is lacking now, and the kind of leadership and the championship kind of things are to happen more than what we could see in these rural areas. And I'm very, very sure and confident that your association with the local communities and their respective MFIs and NBFCs would pave an excellent path for this transformative initiative. But thank you really, really from the bottom of my heart for sharing this views and agreeing to be on the panel. So with that, I'll now move to the most exciting person, I would say, in this panel, Amaya. He looks like a James Bond now in the camera. He has resolved many issues, but he has struggled a lot. It's not that easy. I should say that. And Amaya is an excellent person with whom I've been associated with for many years now. So he's a partner with Encourage Capital and a Harvard graduate, and he leads the clean energy finance and financial inclusion team. And since joining the Ulfenson Fund Management in 2008, he has been actively involved in funds investment in Development Credit Bank, National Stock Exchange of India, Repco Home Finance in India again, and Ujjivan Financial Services and Fab India. Other than that, he has backed a few also success stories, which he will share, I believe. But Amaya, it's wonderful to have you on this panel, and over to you. And in terms of the background, of course, we would like you to share the experience on the MSME financing and how it can further upgrade it, and of course the challenges, and of course specifically on the credit guarantee mechanism which you have been talking for the non-rated entities. Over to you, Amit.
Great. No, thank you so much, Dinesh, and to the World Bank and ADB for putting this together. And nice to see so many of our partners on this call. What I'll do first is just talk to you a little bit about Encourage Capital. So we are an impact investment and advisory firm. We've been working in India for the past 15 years, primarily investing in the financial sector, as Dinesh mentioned. We believe that the financial sector is a tremendous enabler of development outcomes. And so for us, really strengthening the financial sector, making sure that it's inclusive is a key mission for us. And so, if you think about the problem that we're trying to tackle, it is the financing piece of this. And so we've put together an equity fund, a growth equities fund, that invests in financial institutions and helps them develop and scale rooftop solar finance products. And the key for us is to invest in established lenders that already understand this MSME customer base. They have the distribution network, they have the products, the credit experience, et cetera, to appropriately serve this customer base, which is, as in India and in many markets, they are typically excluded from or underserved from the formal financial system. So that's our goal. We provide growth equity capital. We invest $10 to $20 million. We provide capacity building funds from our partner KfW. We've developed a risk mitigation solution, and we provide a whole range of operational assistance to successfully launch these products. So, a key piece of our work here is that, as mentioned earlier by Amit and Abhinav, the economics make sense for customers today, right? And as Sumit just mentioned, particularly for rural customers who rely on diesel gensets, the economics are there. So how do we make the financing happen? So we, through our fund, will invest in 3 to 4 financial institutions, provide them with capital, be active. 2 of the institutions are the ones that Sumit just mentioned, EFL in Pune and Annapurna in Bhubaneswar. And so we support them in developing these products. We've been, we sort of look at our universe as the sub 250 kilowatt market, and this is all CapEx finance. We believe that for the MSME segment, CapEx finance is the most attractive for both the lenders and the customers, and that's what we do. So with EFL right now, we've probably financed over 200, close to 250 projects. Our average project size is 70 kilowatts. It fits in nicely with their core business. And a key principle for us is that the financing structures need to be consistent with the way our lenders do business, right? In terms of the customer segments that they reach, the rates that they charge, et cetera. And as Sumit just mentioned, it's really about the EMIs and how the EMIs are relevant to the energy costs that they have. Our second investment, which we just closed in December, is in Annapurna Finance. It's one of the top MFIs in the country. It's incredibly well capitalized after the round that was just completed. They have a very rapidly growing MSME lending book, and we're helping them develop the rooftop solar program there. We've already completed the first couple of loans on Earth Day and are rapidly advancing, and that's a business that will tackle the sub 20 kilowatt market and have a more rural presence. So for us, those are the kinds of lenders that we back. These are established institutions. and we help them develop these products. One of the key pieces that I mentioned earlier is risk mitigation, right? And I think Abhinav talked about this earlier. Since the segment is new, there is a real gap between actual risk and perceived risk, and this is where risk mitigation solutions, if appropriately structured, can help. And so we've partnered with USDFC, which has been offering credit risk solutions for decades across the globe. They had the infrastructure to develop this product, so we worked with them to structure it for the rooftop solar program, for the rooftop solar sector. We brought in EFL as a partner, Seekers is another partner, and hopefully we'll be adding to that. And this has been very helpful for EFL so far. So it's allowed them to increase the ticket size of what they've been able to do without additional security. And I should mention that one of the challenges for MSME lending is the lack of collateral, right? MSMEs are collateral constrained. Their collateral is often pledged for other uses. And so, we're looking at financing solutions that can use the rooftop solar system as collateral. And so having this kind of credit guarantee mechanism is really helpful. So we found it useful in the EFL case. We're working with folks like Smart Power to see how that can be expanded and make sure it can tackle rural segments. But it does address this issue, we feel, of perceived risk and actual risk. And for us, these are short-term programs, right? The idea is that ultimately that this market, this 16 to 18 gigawatt market that we talk about, is going to be independent of any subsidies or independent of any of these interventions. And we want to see rooftop solar or solar finance in general to be mainstream. And so we hope through our portfolio that we can demonstrate the use cases. EFL so far, although the portfolio is fairly young, has had excellent asset quality. We've talked to some of the largest EPCs in the market who've had their customers financed. They've seen excellent asset quality there, although they're not taking the credit risk, but from what they see for their customers. So, if you can get the ability to repay and the intent to repay, right, which is the core business of the lender, right, to understand those two things. And if you can develop the capabilities to understand solar, rooftop solar, and some of the technical aspects, we believe you can have a differentiated product that adds value for your customers and then allows you to grow your business even more successfully. So I'll pause there. Thank you again, Dinesh. I should say E&Y was a partner of ours in doing the initial research to meet customers around the country and understand these needs. And it's on the basis of that we've developed our fund. We think our opportunity here is to really help make the energy transition more inclusive through the financial sector. And so this is just the start of what we can be doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's quite heartening to see, a successful kind of a success story as such, and that too in terms of your partnerships. I know you had a lot of patience capital in terms of time, resources, and efforts, but you have moved in a very right direction, taken all the positive feedback, and then overcome the challenges also as you travel. And one important point which you also used to share about your technical kind of assistance through KFW in terms of training or improving the quality as you move. I think that was a jewel in the crown in terms of how you would like to also emphasis on that, because ultimately your returns are as good as a project, right? So you have done a wonderful job, I would say, in terms of identifying the right people on ground, and you don't want to just focus on one area, but also move pan-India as you gather more experience. So from that angle, it is quite heartening to see the kind of success and the partnership which is really growing. And as I mentioned to you, you and me go a long way in terms of discussing all these issues as it comes up, and I will continue to help each other as much as we can. So thanks once again, Ameya. Now let me move to Edward Hoyt. I should say, Edward, you are my friend. Can I say that?
Sure. Yes,
So
Dinesh.
I don't know whether Edward remembers a heated conversation we had once in Worldmark in Aero City. We both had a very, very long and interesting conversation in terms of the journey of solar and how India is preparing itself kind of 3 to 4 years ago when he visited India. And then I recently visited him in DC last month as well. So it's great to see you again, Edward. So Edward Hoyt, for the audience, he's a senior global practice lead in the Asia division, member of the Economics Energy Group, and a director of the Water, Energy, and Sustainable Cities practice. So he's responsible for technical leadership on energy. He has over 25 years of experience in energy and development, and includes leadership roles on USAID as well in Central America and West Africa. And he supports investment in clean energy business and projects. So Edward, once again, welcome to the panel. So we would like to really understand the success story that you have come across for the community solar in the US residential sector, and how you think it can be adapted for India, and in terms of any suggestions to improve the access to finance. So please shoot and then share your global examples as you feel relevant. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Dinesh. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dinesh, for that kind introduction, and I'd like to thank the organizers of this panel for the opportunity to join you today from Washington, D.C. And I'll speak a bit about the community solar model and the results that we've seen in the United States, and then a couple of quick points about its possible application and how it might fit into all of the very exciting developments that the panelists have been sharing about their work in India so far. So community solar emerged in the US as a tool for addressing limitations to the addressable market for distributed solar here in the US. There are several factors that limit the potential for distributed solar. First of all, not all buildings, not all rooftops are suitable because of land, technical, or space constraints. In fact, the US Department of Energy estimated that only about 50% of residential and commercial rooftops would be suitable for on-site distributed energy applications. Second, you have ownership constraints, which lead to the split incentive problem. One DOE study estimated that about a third of residential customers in buildings of under 4 stories are renters. And then, of course, in a significant percentage of residents in high-rise buildings are also renters. And then finally, there are the financial constraints. Lower income ratepayers in particular may not be able to secure the financing for rooftop solar installations. So when all of these factors are considered together, a relatively small share of ratepayers nationally have access to solar power. One community solar firm claims that 80% of US customers do not have access to solar, while another study puts the figure at roughly 66%. So community solar, and sometimes you hear people talk about solar gardens or shared solar, is generally based on the application of virtual net metering, which permits residential customer to net out solar generation from a facility that is located away from their location, their residence, and thereby enabling multiple subscribers to club together to be off-takers from a given grid-tied solar facility through per kilowatt credits to their individual meters based on their share of the facility. And as such, it is the most expansive form, if you will, of net metering, because net metering can encompass different applications. You can have the single owner application. You could have meter aggregation at a single site, maybe a farm. You could have multi-site aggregation, which frequently involves government buildings located in proximity to one another in a city or town. And then lastly, tenant aggregation in a multifamily building, typically a high-rise. So in the US, what we've observed over the last 5 or so years are different business models in the community solar space. You have the utility-led model, where the facilities are utility-owned and operated with voluntary participation by the end users, by the ratepayers. Then special purpose vehicles that are created by community members or third-party entrepreneurs who create a business enterprise to aggregate demand and take advantage of fiscal and other incentives that are offered at the state level, and in some cases, and some programs at the federal level. And then there is the nonprofit variant of that, where instead of an SPV, it's a not-for-profit entity that has been created. So what are the benefits of this approach? From the policy perspective, community solar helps expand the market potential for solar in terms of the megawatt installed. It enables the quote unquote democratization of solar particularly in the context of programs where there are mandates and targets for the inclusion of low and middle income ratepayers. It helps avoid the critique of solar programs that you've heard in the United States, that low-income ratepayers are subsidizing incentives that go typically to wealthier ratepayers. And finally, it does help optimize grid integration by enabling a more manageable incorporation of these facilities into overall utility planning processes. From the customer perspective, it lowers the barriers to entry, reduces the investment size that is required for rooftop solar. Ratepayers may not be covering all of their consumption through their participation in the project. It harnesses economies of scale so that off-takers face electricity costs that are lower than you might otherwise see with a single building rooftop solar installation. And it enables somewhat easier maintenance given the smaller number of locations and professionalized maintenance of those installations. And then from the utility perspective, community solar can be a little more palatable because it does limit the number of installation locations. It facilitates planning, and it offers a vehicle for community engagement. But it has to be said that in the United States, utility receptivity has been uneven. So what have the results been? From a regulatory standpoint, there are specific community solar rules in 22 states plus Washington, D.C. But community solar installations are not limited to all of those states. There are community solar installations in 39 states, and as of 2020, about 5.2 gigawatts of installed capacity. Interestingly, this is concentrated in 4 states, 75% of that total in the states of Florida, Minnesota, New York, and Massachusetts in that order. And notably, Florida, which leads the pack with 1.6 gigawatts, has favored the utility-led model. Typical savings for residential off-takers may be about 25%. Obviously, this can vary from location to location, from state to state. There has been considerable innovation in the community solar ecosystem. You obviously have the developers who own and operate solar installations. You've got subscription companies, and this I think is the key takeaway, subscription companies that have stepped in to help round up off-takers, to collect the customer data for registration with the utility, to manage the data, and also offer contracts that help overcome the customer resistance to having long-term offtake agreements. There are, in many instances, contracts with a 1-month cancellation and other facilities that make it a little more attractive for customers to participate. And they manage that pool of customers month to month. And then there are integrated plays where you have generation assets plus the retail customer management aspects of the business. There are issues, of course, challenges. Depending on the market, community solar costs may not deliver the anticipated savings, and this can lead to customer defection. In the industry, you hear people talk about churn. There have been instances of fraud in the recruitment of customers. There are difficulties securing data from utilities. This is one of the areas where utilities have been able to resist a little bit the pace of uptake. And then despite incentives and mandates for low and middle income customer participation, the percentage of installations with dedicated for LMI, low and middle income communities, is relatively small, just about 5% of the total. And there still does appear to be some customer reluctance because of the need to have a separate bill from the utility as well as from the community solar provider. So a couple of quick thoughts about the applicability in India. Obviously, India's urban areas do face constraints in terms of the addressable rooftops. And this is where community solar could be an interesting tool for expanding access. And one of the reasons that you have that limitation that is really not observed quite so much in the United States is that building owners in India may prefer not to install solar, even if it's viable, because of the option value for having an unoccupied roof. At some later date, they might want to add an extra story or two. From a policy perspective, this tool may be more palatable for engaging with utilities, especially in those states that have lagged behind in the implementation of net metering and rooftop solar. That's one possibility that really flows from this approach of aggregation. Um, and then obviously this is another tool for mobilizing the investment capital of the customer base and leveraging that with the investment of brought to the table by the entrepreneurs, especially when we look at the SPV business model. But beyond that, clearly, and this is something that India has been focused on for years now with impressive results, the tools for expanding financing are obviously about getting the prices right, addressing subsidies, limiting them to the bare minimum, making them much more transparent. The availability of rupee-based financing from local lenders and investors is something that we're seeing in the presentations from my colleagues on the panel. And then lastly, the opportunities to exploit on-bill repayment, especially through the utility-based model, will address some of the perceived credit risk. I'll leave it there, and I look forward to the discussion following the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Edward. Sorry, I have to trouble you to send you those reminders, but it's an exciting topic because we have been discussing the first half, hearing a lot about MSMEs, and you are the first one to intervene and talk about the community in the residential, because as you said, even if you have enough space and investment, but still many Indian consumers, they don't go for rooftop solar. So that could be many other reasons, and we have to really find out and try to create that enabling ecosystem for that. And community solar, whatever you said, and US has been quite impressive. We heard a lot of success stories in challenging times, even within US, in terms of the regulators' pressure in kind of charging additional charges for the net metering. But moving forward, I think they have come a long way as you started giving the kind of percentage penetration in terms of communities. It's a really an eye opener for the Indian market. And just to let you know, and also the audience, about the recent kind of attention towards virtual net metering, which is again going to promote community solar for the residential sector. I think many states have started looking into it. We are very closely working with the ministry to create a standard operating kind of procedures for implementing the virtual net metering to promote community solar in the country. So I definitely would look forward to hear more from you when you start rolling out this program in the country, and then your inputs would definitely help us, Edward. Thank you so much once again for your key inputs. Now let me move to Sampath. Sampath Kumar, he's the head business development at the Tata Clean Tech Capital. He's a senior banker with over 20 years of experience in project and infrastructure finance and advisory assignments as well, spreading across various sectors in the infrastructure and investors in South Asia as well. I believe is a key part in terms of promoting the rooftop solar under the kind of TCCL's exclusive financing that is available for rooftop solar from the GCF as well. Sampath, we are very eager to hear from you in terms of how you have been engaged in this operation and the financial level challenges that you have basically prevented developers from reaching out to the MSME. So what are those operational and the financial level hurdles? And in terms of your efforts in financing MSMEs, it would be great to hear as such, because you have come a long way in terms of focusing on the sector for the last 3 to 5 years, I would say, and it has been a wonderful journey that we would all like to hear from you. So over to you, Sampath.
Thank you, Dinesh, and thank you for this opportunity to be part of this panel. I hope you can hear me clear.
Loud and clear. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So so from a TCCL point of view, I just want to just maybe give a very quick background and brief of what we do. And we are basically a specialized financial institution or an NBFC focusing on the clean tech space and the infrastructure space. Our journey has been now like a 8-9 year journey since we set up way back in 2013. Currently, our asset book is close to about 8,000 crores, just a shade over $1 billion. And we've sort of lent across most of the sectors which have been seeing active interest from developers in both the clean tech space as well as infrastructure space. One of the things that we do is also, channelize the funding from some of the DFIs and multilaterals, and we basically help them in terms of deployment into the Indian, project landscape. So that's something that we've been doing, and we have associations with a number of, DFIs and other institutions, and we've successfully deployed a lot of, financing into this, into the various sectors that we operate in. So that's about TCCL. And yes, this whole discussion is about the rooftop space. And I would say that, that's a space, that with which we've been closely involved with over the last, few years. You spoke about the GCF, engagement that we have. We basically have a 100 million line from GCF, which is basically a commingled line, which basically mingles with the $100 million of funds that we put in. And we basically, the idea is to deploy this into the rooftop space across the industrial, commercial, institutional, and residential, sectors. So far, we have drawn about 50 million of this, of this financing, and we have funded more than about 250 megawatt worth of rooftop projects, under this collaboration with GCF. And while we have done this over the last 3 odd years, we have realized that we have been focusing more on the OPEX part of the market, and it just dawned us over the last a few months that the significant part of this market basically lies in the capex space. And that's something that some of the prior panelists have spoken about in terms of where the market is right now. And so therefore, if any financier in this landscape wants to make a difference, I guess you've got to look at this particular space, which is around the capex model and how to fund that. And I guess it makes tremendous amount of sense to focus on the MSME and the SME segment, and also the residential sectors. The question really being, why has it not really rather, what are the ingredients we need to really make this happen? So I guess that brings us to the subject around the challenges that one foresees or have we have been seeing both from a operational standpoint as well as a financial standpoint. I think the latter one is easier to pick because that's something that everyone's already spoken about, and it's really about how lenders struggle when they look at the credit rating of the borrowers. It's always been a kind of a weak area, and especially lenders who are more focused on the wholesale segment of the market, they find it very difficult to sort of get accustomed to the kind of off takers that you see, especially when it comes to financing the capex for some of the the SMEs and the MSME segments. I think solutions are already there on the table. I think a lot of people have already spoken about it, and I think some of these interventions which can happen in the form of risk guarantees and the credit guarantees will definitely play a meaningful role in terms of opening up the market further. But this is more from a financing standpoint. But I guess from an operational standpoint, I'll just maybe put together, maybe just put forth a few points that we have been facing when we look at some of this. I think the key one is basically as a lender, you've got one of the constraints we face is that you typically have limited your boots on the ground. And when you sort of look at financing in this landscape, I mean, you basically come across a lot of transactions which are really small in terms of size, and that basically also brings to the fore the question around the cost of the diligence, the cost of the diligence that you need to sort of build in when you sort of evaluate transactions of this type. And basically, when you add the diligence cost, I mean, ultimately the landed cost, to the customer actually goes up. So I guess if there are interventions around, how we can make some of this, cost of diligence sort of come down, I think that would be a great, initiative. I think that's one point. The second point is also around when you're working with some of the the SMEs and the MSMEs is also about, the kind of, security that's there on the table. And especially, when you look at it from a lender's perspective, I mean, security becomes the predominant, one of the predominant, comforts. And there comes, certain operation challenges, especially when you're dealing with some of the smaller entities in terms of, for example, the kind of NOCs you need from other lenders in terms of, making the security package workable, et cetera, et cetera. So some of those challenges are challenges that we keep, facing when we, evaluate transactions of this type. And I think we've already spoken about some of the other, challenges, especially around, net metering, and, that has also kind of resulted, and depending on the states, you're dealing with, and depending on, what's happened is really the transaction sizes per se have also come down because of some of the net metering policies which have been adopted by various, state governments. The way the policies are designed, it tends to favor more and more smaller kind of, transactions. So these are some of the things, and therefore, what we are trying to do, I think from a TCCL point of view, is we're trying to think in a slightly different way. Besides the traditional, financing products, which a lot of people already are offering. I mean, we are also currently evaluating and, in fact, at advanced stages of trying to launch a leasing kind of initiative in this space, where we're trying to see how we can, bring leasing solutions to some of the clients. And that would be an interesting, proposition, to put on the table, we feel. And when we are dealing with this solution, I mean, again, some of the challenges that we're facing, I'm just saying this, because you got a lot of, esteemed panelists here, and I'm just trying to put this in front of everyone, is basically around, how do you manage, for example, the issues around, the residual value, that you face, for example, when you're giving a leasing solution, or for that matter, issues dealing with redeployment of some of these, panels. Should something go wrong. So I think in from that standpoint, I think, solutions which sort of deal with some of those, both from, and that obviously also will need, a lot of stakeholder, intervention and support, and I think people who are best capable of handling this particular risk should ultimately, be coming forward, to basically, lend support and make this, I guess, whole proposition, which is more value accretive, from an end user point of view. So I think these are some of the things, which were just coming to my mind. I thought we'll just, mention that. And I think we are very excited, from a DCCL point of view in terms of how we can, support this space.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Hey, I think that the points are really valid in terms of how you would like to differentiate from the overall appraisal of the projects, because coming from the financing aspect of it, you have to really secure what you lend, and therefore this type of information always vary from sector to sector. And when you take a pan-India financing, you have to really, I won't say average it out, but you have to basically be very specific in terms of certain region in terms of when you try to lend. It's just not going to be the same in Western as compared to Southern or Northeast, for example. Is completely a different challenge. So in terms of the differentiator, I think you have a big challenge. But having said that, the kind of the loads and loads of experience you're bringing in, I think that would help us to standardize certain type of financing for other players like you. Of course, they would be your competitors, but the experience you are trying to share would definitely help the other institutions as well to lend. So thank you once again so much, Sampath, for agreeing to join this panel and share your thoughts.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Now let me move to Mr. Wala, RJ Wala from Gujarat. Sir, are you there?
Yeah.
Great. So I want to ensure that he's there, because I'm going to term him as a Superman of India. For those who don't know, Mr. Wala, you should know now. So we can call him as a super solar man, if I'm right. It's a teamwork. He would very modestly say it's a teamwork, but I have seen him work so much, so hard, and yet be so much reachable to all of us. It has been wonderful to interact with him anytime. He's always with the smile, which you can see on the camera right now. He's the man behind the 1.2 or 1.3. I don't know, every day there is a gigawatt being installed. Not megawatt, but he's working in gigawatts now. He's truly moving towards the vision for India. The residential rooftop solar journey initiated by Gujarat is unprecedented, I would say. And this is really motivating the rest of the residential sector in the states. And there is no need for any progress review meeting with Mr. Vala, because the progress is every day, every second, every minute, I would say. And he prepares the progress review every day in the morning for the minister. So, sir, I could always go on talking about you. It has been such a pleasure to be associated with you, and thanks for joining this call. So I'm going to ask you the same boring question to you. What is the success of Gujarat and how you managed it, so that the audience could be enlightened with us? And also, please help few pointers in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4 at the end of your summary also, so that we could really take it and try to implement in other states. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dinesh Babu. Thank you for the appreciation. Actually, it was a teamwork. It was a teamwork of the entire 6 discoms, entire employee of the 6 discoms, not my and not me only. At present, we have near to 2 gigawatt achievement. Our installed capacity is now 1.9 gigawatt, and out of them, 1.3 gigawatt is from the residential sector and 500 megawatt is from the C&I segment. But actually this progress is, we achieved after August 2019 when the MNRE launched the phase 2 program. So before that, there was a slow adoption of the solar rooftop by the residential consumers. Issue of the economic viability, experienced by the residential consumers, the lack of consumer awareness, lack of market depth, small numbers of EPC players, and high overall execution times, about 6 months. So before August 19, we have achieved only 150 megawatt, and only on the 40,000 numbers of residential consumers. But then after we came out with the scheme known as the Surya Gujarat scheme, SURYA, that is Surya Urja Rooftop Yojana. It is just a replica of the MNRE's phase 2 program. We devised a strategy that how to reach out with the consumers, how to increase our EPC player base. So then we thought that there are 4 players which will give us the success. So I will give the name of these 4 pillars. Is the first is that you have to have the large numbers of EPC players. Unless otherwise you cannot achieve the progress, because the rooftop size is very, very small. It is like 1 kilowatt, 2 kilowatt, 3 kilowatt. In average, it is a 3.9 kilowatt in Gujarat. At present, we have installed this rooftop on more than 3 lakhs of residential consumer, 3 lakhs. In Gujarat, we have total residential consumer base is around 15 million, 15 million. This is 1.5 crore. So if I take only 20% of this consumer base who can able to install the rooftop, or there are space to install the rooftop, then this 20% would become around 30,000 consumers, and the capacity would become around 10,000 megawatt. So at present, we are only achieved this above 1,000 megawatt, and our target is to achieve, we can easily achieve 10,000 megawatt. So we have planned in such a way that we increase our EPC base, we increase our customer participation, and all the entire process should be on the online. The first EPC base, we initially came out with the tender of 600 megawatt. At that time, we empaneled MSMEs and new entrepreneurs, and we encourage them to come and participate in the tender. So for 450 numbers of agencies we identified and we empaneled. Then the next year we also came out with the new tender of 600 megawatt, and we empaneled 550 agencies, including new entrepreneurs. Now at present, we came out with 1,000 megawatt tender, in which 700 megawatt tender is for the urban area. Earlier we had one experience that the agencies are going in the urban area only, they are not going in the rural areas. So we came out with a separate tender for the rural area for the 300 megawatt. So there will be 2 kind of agency sets and 2 kind of rates also. So then the rural area agency has to work in the rural area only, urban area agency has to work in urban area. So at present, this tender is under scrutiny and will come out with the rates within, few days, 15-20 days. This one agency is set on consumer participation. Third, the entire process should be on the online portal. So we started the journey in 2019. At that time, our portal was the just basic portal. Then we add on the features. And at present, I'm glad to inform you that this is India's first fully digitized portal in which right from application to disbursement of subsidy, everything is processed on the portal. No any hard copy. We don't require any hard copy, not even application form. So all the processes are on the online. Even we are tracking the module serial number. We are going for the inspection. That is, all things are going on the online. And the important thing is the timely disbursement of the subsidy, because the EPC players are the small players. They don't have that much of liquidity. So you have to give timely payments against their installation. So in Gujarat, we have some 800 crore of the corpus fund. This is given by the state government. And we reimburse the CFA from the MNRE. So before that, we receive the CFA, we disburse the subsidy CFA to the vendors. So they don't wait for the payment of the subsidy, they carry on their work. Okay. And I will elaborate this consumer participation in some 4 or 5 things that we have carried out. We fired the SMS to the all residential consumers. So 200 lakhs of SMS, 20 million lakhs SMS we fired with a link that is one web page in our vernacular language. They open it and they gather the information about the name of the APC agencies, their rate, their contact number, email ID, even the calculator of the subsidy, and how much they have to invest, or how much amount they will get at the subsidy. And if they don't know anything, they just have to call a missed call to us. So we publish this missed call 7666 449911 in our each and every advertisement media. So people just call the missed call and they get the link. Even we call back them on this number. We have the number mobile base, and we help them to reach out with the agencies. If you dial this number 7666 449911, you will get a link and you will get all the information from this. And also you will get the mobile phone from the APC agencies. Then TV, we broadcasted our means video advertisement in all news channels. Also in the FM and this All India Radio, we frequently broadcasted the audio spots. And also we prepared flex banners, which is very cheap way of advertisement. Each and every places like Jan Seva Kendra, where people come to pay their bills, collector office, all the government office, all the subdivision office, all the taluka block level or gram panchayat level, we place this small text banner with this missed call number and information about the subsidy. So people easily understand and this about this scheme, and they will take the benefit of this scheme. We printed the flyers. This flyer we staple it with their electricity bills, with the newspaper, and and then after we also carried out door-to-door campaign. Our engineers, our employee went in the public, went in the society, and they arranged the meeting. So with the agencies, so they understand that what are the benefit of the rooftop. If they install the rooftop, the payback period is how much? It is around 3.5 years. And in regular manner, we used to give full page, half page advertisement in the English, Hindi, and Gujarati newspapers. Also displayed the hoarding. Also recently we prepared a AI-based chatbot in which we have FAQ type of question, so people can type the questions and get the information. Also we are on the social media, Facebook and YouTube's. I'm highlighting this point about the quality, that each and every module that are used in this 1.3 gigawatt of installation are inspected by our engineers. We have trained 250 numbers of DISCOM engineers in the 6 DISCOMs, including Torrent Powers, the private DISCOMs, and we send them for the pre-dispatch inspection at the OEM factory premises site. So whatever the module, there are the module cost is around 80% of the total project cost. So we ensure that the quality is as per the MNRE or BIS standards. And at present, I mean, we have received more than 3 lakhs of application, and we install most of them. And at present our achievement is around 9 gigawatt, and our aim is to by next year our aim is to add more 1 gigawatt and to reach about 2.5 or 3 gigawatt. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Balaji. We can continue to hear from you, but we are running out of time. But what a wonderful journey, I would say. So that was Mr. Balaji, who's right now the Chief Engineer Project at PG VCL. It's always wonderful to hear from you. Only positive things. He doesn't talk about challenges because he has a solution already in his mind to overcome such challenges. So Balaji, thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. You should at least feature in Limca world record, if not Guinness later, but at least the national record. I think you have already broken it, and you're breaking it every day. So thank you once again. And I have to apologize now to Rajiv Kumar sir.
I want to say one sentence. Yeah. Actually, before few days, we had one facilitation program in which we give appreciation star base to our subdivisions employees, subdivision engineers, and I appreciated 3 subdivisions which are having the 10 megawatt of installed capacity, which is higher than the one state of India. One subdivision is nearly one state of India.
Excellent. Yeah, good to know that. Thank you so much. So Rajiv ji, I'm very sorry you have been the last speaker and I made you wait for such a long time. And Mr. Rajiv Kumar is the General Manager, Cluster Development and Energy Efficiency Vertical at SIDBI. And he's an experienced officer with a great experience of working in the financial service industry. And he's an expert in financing MSME. So no wonder we have invited him to share his views. And besides energy efficiency, RE and resource efficiency. So Rajiv ji, we would like to hear from you in terms of your views on this guarantee mechanism, because we discussed enough in this panel about the difficult nature for MSMEs to get loan who are not rated, and also your experience in partnering with Tata Power for financing rooftop solar projects for MSMEs. So over to you, Mr. Rajiv.
Thank you, Dinesh. Yes, as you all aware, SIDBI is a development financial institution meant for promotion, financing and development of MSME sector in India. We are not a commercial bank, and we provide direct financing in a very small way, only in the niche segment where the banks are not very active. So the objective is basically to mainstream those products which are viable and showcase them to the banks and mainstream those products, and then we stop operating those products. Solar rooftop in MSME is a segment wherein we see that there is a lot of potential, but that the potential is still not being reaped fully by the banks. So while we have been operating, we have started direct financing directly also the solar rooftop projects, and presently we were focused only to the manufacturing MSME sector, and typically these projects are ranging from 20 kilowatt to maximum 500 kilowatt, or sometimes up to 1 megawatt. So we have a financing scheme, and over the last 2 years, we have seen increasingly more and more MSMEs are coming forward and availing these loans. The only challenge is often these MSMEs, they do not go for solar rooftop on a standalone. They go for project funding, which might include solar rooftop, other machineries. So it has to be a packaged bundle, and we are able to do that because we have a product, which covers energy efficiency as well as solar rooftop. So we are financing, and to encourage MSMEs to come forward and take up solar rooftop, and energy efficiency. Our product, we have kept it the rates as highly concessional. These are repo linked rates. Repo plus 0.5% is the lowest rate, and the maximum rate is around repo plus 2%. So so rates are very attractive. And recently we have modified the scheme. We have also seen that there's a lot of traction and lot of service sector players are there in the service sector, which are in MSME segment, and they are basically helping others to take up this solar rooftop. They are implementing, they are acting as EPC players or maybe sometimes rescos. So they can also be covered under our financing scheme. And with the this discussion on the credit guarantee for solar rooftop, I think this is going to give us a boost. SIDBI as well as other banks a lot of confidence for lending to this MSME sector. As you are aware, SIDBI is a promoter of CGTMSE along with Ministry of MSME, and SIDBI is running CGTMSE and also one more guarantee company, which is called NCGTC, National Credit Guarantee Corporation. And over the years, CGTMSE has issued around 50 lakh guarantees, aggregating to around 2.5 lakh crores. And these have helped smaller MSMEs to take collateral-free loans, loans up to 10 lakhs and up to 1 crore. And recently, this limit has been increased to up to rupees 2 crores. Recently, we have also, renewed our arrangement with Tata Power and made it more customer friendly. We have agreed for centralized processing and sanctions, and again, the attractive loan rates, no collateral being asked, and higher loan limit has also been agreed. So any MSME who is planning to put up solar rooftop can approach any of our branches for availing the loan. And in fact, our basically intention, as I said in the beginning, would be to showcase that this is a segment which is a viable segment, and we will be encouraging other banks to lend to this sector, so that gradually financing solar rooftop in MSME becomes mainstreamed. That is the motive, that is the intention with which SIDBI is working. So thank you. Over to you, Dinesh.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. That's very, very useful, because I think everybody was waiting for what you're going to say about the guarantee and also about how to approach you for the loans, etc. So I believe your thought process and your inputs have been very useful. And as you said, the combination of the loans may sometimes make it easier, but many times it's a bit tough because the appraisal officer should have more knowledge about appraising the rooftop as well. So it becomes a kind of a challenge, and unless the project, the entire project appraisal technique is also integrated with the rooftop solar, then it becomes a bit easier. But the emphasis should be on that also, even if it is an integrated loan. That's a very, very valid point. I would definitely agree with that. So I think we have come to a conclusion, but I have to appreciate each one of you for staying more than the allotted time, and because I couldn't, either I was not keeping up the time or I was carried away by all the points that you have been discussing. We had a two combination of residential and MSMEs, which is a very, very interesting subject, which is a growing subject in the country right now. And therefore, the business model, the business practice, I would say, rather than the theoretical models, the practice is more important. And that is creating a lot of emphasis in terms of how we can replicate that, because this is very, very important in terms of what Amaya is doing in India and what Edward mentioned about the community that is already happening in India, which could happen in other developing countries, and what Rajiv ji said about the kind of guarantee schemes and how they can very easily, the MSMEs can access to the loan. I think there's a very good combination of things that is right now happening. India is on the cusp of breaking that kind of the barriers for the rooftop solar as such, I would say. and the first point which I said, the confidence has to come from both the consumer as well as from the lending, because the developer in between is also an MSME in many cases. For Gujarat, for example, all these vendors whom Balaji has impaneled, I would say 90% are MSMEs. So there is another side of that story. We may have another event on just understand how the MSME rooftop solar developers have created that system of supplying gigawatt of rooftop solar in the residential sector. It's not going to be an easy story at all. So they also need access to financing, but the cash flow has been quite made useful for the Gujarat by the system that they get the subsidy on time. The working capital is very easily available, and then the gigawatt story happens. I think that is a great financing story to look at it for replicating in the MSME sector also. Amya, that is a very important point that I want to leave for you to kind of see how it could also help in triggering the MSME transformation. In terms of ESL is waiting to happen, as he said, and their foray in the sector and access to the consumer is given. So they have to just leverage in terms of what they already have. And I'm extremely sure that MSME intervention by ESL is going to kind of become a very huge success story, and the way the financing is happening in the country, I believe ESL has all the answers in terms of breaking that monotony, in terms of having very much I think too many difficulties in accessing the loans. I think they can break that monotony as well, because they could also invest in the whole system. So overall, I'm extremely satisfied in terms of how we started the session with Samit and Abhishek in terms of giving the perspectives of how the initiatives could be pan-India, and at the same time how important is in terms of working on ground. Samit was very pointed towards creating that kind of the awareness, and also trying to build the confidence within the community, and how the partnerships are growing. And I was very happy to see that he has partnered with Amaya as well in bringing up the entire cluster. And I believe Amaya also would be very happy to see the partnership with Annapurna, for example, and then growing across the country. I think that is very important, not to have only one set of experience in a particular region, because India is like many different countries, right, by itself, in terms of having different implementing scenarios. So from that angle, I would say it was a very good mix. It was a cocktail, I know. It's time to cocktail as well, but it was a good cocktail in terms of understanding the success and the challenges, even failures. Nothing wrong. We learn from it, from both the sectors, residential and the MSMEs. But having said that, there are kind of few questions, but they are pointed towards the same aspect. So maybe I'm forced to ask a couple of questions. It's not pointed towards anybody, but it's more towards generic information in terms of where they can go and get the financing from the bank, or which financing institutions can help. That is one question. It's a very generic question, but maybe Amaya and Rajiv sir can answer that question by giving some pointers towards that. Maybe give some names, and if you want to even give the website names, it will be very useful. That's the first.
Sure, I can put in the chat box the links for Electronica and Annapurna, and you can find you can find their rooftop solar solutions there. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Amaya.
No, I was just saying, I think that the two from our side that we would encourage folks to reach out to are Electronica Finance and Annapurna. I talked a little bit about their typical, project sizes. Although you should talk to both and find out what is the best solution for you. It would depend on the project size and the geography, but I'll put those in the chat right now.
That'll be great. We'll keep the chat box open for another 5-10 minutes for you to post that as well. That's not an issue. Also, Amitabh sir, are you on the call? There is some question about the Shaurya Shakti SBI program.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yes, sir. Could you share any details about this Shaurya Shakti program, which is between SBI and Tata Power, sir?
See, presently, this thing is entirely driven by another department. So I don't have the detail, but we have created a special cell, and that is for the Pan India. One cell is dedicated, which is receiving all the applications, and they are appraising all the loans, and it is centralized. So the process is fast. The process is fast, and all the queries are resolved at one point. So this is the entire thing. This is based at Mumbai, I believe, and there are officers who have been trained for handling this renewable energy projects.
Great, sir. So, and this is exclusively for Tata Power, sir, or can they apply for any other developers also, sir?
I will check it and come back to you.
Sure, no problem, sir. Thank you. These were the questions I got repeated. That's why I bothered you. So thank you so much for your response. And similar question is for Rajiv ji in terms of where they could go and apply for the loan for the scheme that you mentioned. So if you could provide some clarity on that.
Yeah, and they whosoever wants a loan for solar rooftop or energy efficiency, they can approach any of our branch offices. We have got around 80 branch offices across India. They can approach the branch office, nearest branch office, and avail the facility.
Thank you so much, sir. So because many of them are interested to get access to the loan, and once you give these details, that will be very useful for them. But approaching any SIDBI branch, I think that's a very easy part for the loan seeker, for the borrower. So audience, those who asked the question, you got the answer. We'll keep the chat box open for the panelists and experts to post their responses as well, if time permits, because I've already taken half an hour of their precious time already. Edward is there in the US time, so I think he should also go for other meetings, and Amay as well. But it was a wonderful interaction with each one of you. I would say this recording, we would like to post it on our website. It will be available on suprabha.org and the YouTube as well. I'll try to popularize the link so that people can go back and hear this as well. And I request the audience to forward this link to many others who can hear it at leisure. That's the advantage of having these online webinars, that people can go back and listen and take those important tips from this event. So thank you once again to all the panelists. And I would like now to invite my colleague Anand Upadhyay to share a quick word of thanks so that it won't be very long, but Anand, please go ahead.
Sure, sir, hope I'm audible.
You are.
Thank you. So good evening to all of you. Just a request before you decide to hit the cross button on Teams. And I do understand it's been a bit late. I'll try to quicken up. I would request for a few minutes of your time to thank our speakers and panelists. And please feel free to use the reaction button on Teams to express your appreciation. My name is Anand Upadhyay, and I'm part of the renewable energy team at EY. And as Mr. Amit Jain said, we have come a long way over the past decade. And we could see that in terms of the rich experience and success stories, shared by our esteemed panelists. I would like to thank the Asian Development Bank for its Asia Clean Energy Forum platform, for this opportunity where we could engage over 70 participants on topics which we all would like a solution to. And I would also like to thank the World Bank team for organizing this webinar. A heartfelt thanks to Mr. Amit Jain for setting the context right at the start, and to Abhinav Goyal, again from World Bank, for the detailed presentation on new business models, which may perhaps hold the key to resolving growth of rooftop solar in residential and MSME sectors. And we are grateful to Mr. Amitabh Sinha for the keynote speech. Thank you, sir, for sharing the vision of SBI and for its efforts towards this important sector. Mr. Abhishek Gupta, we appreciate your experience sharing, across demand aggregation and efficient implementation also across multiple sectors, and that is something which is going to be very crucial for rooftop again. Mr. Samit Mitra from Smart Power India, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives on the future of the sector, and also your work regarding credit guarantee mechanism. And Mr. Amay Bijur from Encourage Capital, thank you so much for sharing the details of your recipe for success and partnerships. Mr. Edward Hoyt from Chemonics International, thank you, sir, for throwing light on the activities being undertaken in the US. And as you said, which would perhaps lead to democratization of the rooftop market in possibly what could also work in India. Mr. Sampath Kumar from TCCL, thank you so much, sir, for your experience, which could help standardize the financing across sectors and perhaps your competitors too. But I think we all can agree that we have a large market to cover. And Mr. Wala from PGVCL, sir, always admire your focus and clarity. And it was a pleasure working with you in Gujarat at the start of the Phase 2 scheme. Thank you for sharing the gigawatt scale success story of Rooftop in Gujarat. And Mr. Rajiv Kumar from SIDBI, thank you, sir, for sharing the details of SIDBI's programs and the initiatives undertaken for Rooftop Solar. And finally, I would like to thank Yuvraj Dinesh Babu, Executive Director EY, for moderating this discussion and also managing our very sharp panelists. And thank you so much to the team which did all the hard work to put this together. Thank you all for joining us and hope to see you all soon again. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Great. That brings us to the end of the event. Thanks, Anand. So thanks to you for that. And I once again like to thank all the panelists. It was wonderful hearing from you. We'll continue this partnership and discussion as we move on, especially with Edward and Amaya for getting more experience from the West. And of course, with Rajiv ji, Abhishek ji, and Balaji and Amitabh ji also from SBI and SIDBI and the fraternity of the financing and enabling ecosystem. I think it's a very rare panel. I would say I will once again want to express my gratitude to you. And we have to again have a similar panel for discussing, as I mentioned, to the MSME developers story, how the financing is happening to those developers as well. So I'll very soon connect with you on that idea as well. But Amitabh sir, thank you so much for delivering the keynote address. It was wonderful hearing from you. And it has been a great pleasure, as I mentioned to you, working with the SBI since August 2017. So thank you once again, sir, for delivering the keynote address. And we will all see you very soon. And as I mentioned, we will create a link for this event. Please share it in the social media so that people can watch it again. Thank you once again. Have a good day for Edward and Amaya, and have a great evening to the rest of the audience. Thank you. Bye-bye. And once again, thanks to ADB ACEF 2022. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.